For most of human history, we have had clean water and a pristine environment. We lived in harmony with nature. There were times, however, when we lost our way and became greedy and selfish. Each time that happened, the animals and the environment suffered, as well as the humans. Each time that happened, we learned a lesson. Once again, we have lost our way. The animals and the environment are not the only ones suffering, so are we. There is hope if we can learn from the lessons in this story.
Ani buju, manjanap kinagego na be indijnakas. Ganabajing and Dunjaba, Gigo Do Dem. My name is Isaac Murdoch. I'm from Serpent River First Nation, and I'm from the Fish Clan. My name means the man who paints the rocks, and it's a great honor to be able to share this story with you today. The story that I'm going to tell happened a long time ago. The story is very old and was passed down from generation to generation. Years ago, the people from my tribe, they were given special instructions on how to live with Mother Earth. They were to share everything that they had. They followed a sacred path that went from east to west, called Wabno Mikan. They followed that sacred path, and through walking that path, they were to follow the trails of the animals. And they were told that there is great medicine on those trails. The two-legged decided to create their own paths. That's when everything went wrong. You see, the animal paths that we were to follow, they were a good path, because what that meant was that we'd walk like the animals in a good way. Well, in this story, they stopped doing that. In this story, they decided to go their own way. And it didn't turn out too good. Because what happened was, they started to become greedy. They became greedy and they started to take too much. They stopped sharing with each other. They actually stopped giving to one another. They started to hoard their food. That wasn't a good way to be. That's not how it is in nature. But that's how the two-legged decided to be in the story. And with it came a great consequence. Because up in the sky, there was a spirit that was watching down, seeing how the two-legged tried to destroy everything. This spirit, we know it as Babunanini, or this great man that lives up there in the north. He's seen how the two-legged start to try to destroy everything, and he started to blow his cold, cold breath on earth. But there was a power here that was stronger than his power. It was the birds. The birds, actually, when they sang their sacred song, it started to push back that old man's power. When the birds sang their songs, that old man's power got pushed right back into his mouth. So the old man thought, you know what? I'm going to go down to earth. I'm going to get all of those birds, put them in a big bag, put them in my wigwam. Then I'm going to blow my breath on the earth. I'm going to freeze it all. And when I do that, I'm going to destroy all of the evil and all the sickness that those two-leggeds created. So that's what he did. He started to blow his breath after getting all those birds. He started to blow his breath on earth. And sure enough, everything started to freeze. Everything started to perish on earth. And the old man just kept on blowing. So the animals, they decided to have a meeting, a sacred council meeting to decide what to do. And what they decided was they needed to somehow get those birds back on Earth so that they could sing their sacred songs. They knew that that was the medicine that was needed. And 4 of them agreed to go. The first animal that stepped up was the fisher. The second animal was porcupine. The third animal was the otter. And the 4th animal was the lynx. Those were the ones that decided to go on this warrior's journey to save the earth. The 4 of them journeyed up into a mountain, the highest mountain they could find, and they agreed to go up there and jump to the stars from there, and then zigzag across the sky, bouncing from star to star, to steal the birds from that old man's wigwam. They didn't know that what they were about to do was almost going to be impossible. So that's what they did. They climbed up that very high mountain. And when they got there, it was Porcupine. But Porcupine's not a jumper. Porcupine is almost an unlikely hero. So what they did with Porcupine was they grabbed Porcupine by the back legs and they threw him up into the stars. Or they thought. But as soon as Porcupine got high enough, it hit a power. It hit something up there that you can't see. It's invisible. In the Ojibwe language, it's called Gijikdong. Porcupine came falling down to earth. I couldn't bust through that power. And when Porcupine landed on its back feet and busted them. That's why Porcupine wobbles around today, why his back feet are all swollen. It's to remind us of what happened long ago when the two-legged got very greedy and tried to destroy the earth. The next animal that wanted to make the jump was Negeg the otter. Otter is very, very quick. Otter is smart and fast, a good swimmer, has good determination, is a good hunter. And Otter decided to make that jump. So Otter jumped from the top of that mountain up into the stars. But the same thing happened. Otter hit that power too and came crashing down to earth. And when Otter hit the side of that mountain, he hit it on his stomach and he slid all the way down. That's why otters slide around today. It's to remind us of what happened so many years ago when the two-legged forgot to share what they had with everything. The third animal to go was Piju, the lynx. The lynx have strong back legs. They're also very, very smart animals. They're quiet. They're good climbers. They think. Lynx decided to jump up too. But when Lynx jumped, Lynx too hit that power. And Lynx came crashing down onto that mountain, just like the other animals. And when Lynx did, he busted his tail on a sharp piece of ice. And it fell off. That's why lynx have little tails today. That's why they're only short like this. That's to remind us of what happened long ago. When the two-legged, when they forgot about how to walk that sacred path with the animals. Of course, the only one left on that mountain was Fisher. Fisher is a good hunter as well, but it's not as good as a jumper as Lynx, and is not as a good swimmer like Otter. So Fisher dug in the ice and snow and found 6 bearberries in the bottom of the ice and snow and dug them up. Those 6 berries Fisher held in his hand and held them up to the sky as an offering to the great spirit of this land and to everything that surrounds us. That's when Fisher noticed that there was a crack in that power. The other animals had made a crack in there. Fisher knew all he had to do was keep trying and he'd be able to bust through. And that's what he did. He threw down those 6 berries and he jumped and jumped and jumped and finally busted through and made what is known as Bug-o-Nagijik, the great hole in the sky. So there was Fisher. Fisher had cracked through that great power in the sky. But Fisher seen something. Fisher looked across those stars and where that old man's wigwam was and noticed that there was a big crane guarding that lodge. Cranes are beautiful animals. They're graceful. They have good posture. But they also have a very loud voice. When a crane screams, it can be heard for miles. Fisher knew that. All the crane had to do was open his great big mouth and make that big gawking noise, and the old man in the wigwam would know that something was wrong. And he would just go running for his magic arrows. Fisher just stood at that hole and watched. Fisher knew that in order to silence the crane, he had to do something. And he had an idea. He figured he was going to go down to earth and grab some spruce gum, very sticky spruce gum, and shove it in that crane's big mouth. And that's exactly what he did. He went down to earth. He got that spruce gum. He ran up to that crane and he shoved it right into that crane's big mouth. But before it went all the way back, that crane made a little noise, enough for that old man to know something was wrong. Right away, that old man ran for his magic arrows. So Fisher ran into that wigwam and grabbed those birds. Fisher was quick and very, very courageous. Grabbed those birds and started to run across the sky. Fisher grabbed those birds and started to put them down that hole. But while Fisher was doing that, Fisher heard a noise that was going to change his destiny. The noise that I'm talking about was the snapping of a bowstring. Fisher put those birds down and kept on running. That old man had magic arrows. That old man, his arrows could go right to the end of the earth, and they always hit their mark. That Fisher got struck by an arrow and died very quickly. Of course, the old man was happy because all he had to do was gather those birds once again and blow his breath on earth, freeze everything, destroy the two-legged for their greedy ways. He knew there was going to be no more heroes. So that's what he was going to set out to do. But at that moment, something came down into his lodge from way up above. 6 spirits came down, each of them holding a red berry in their hand. And they stopped that old man from leaving that lodge, and they told him, "We've seen everything." Those spirits told him, "We've seen how the two-legged were acting, and how the animals, the four-legged, tried to save the earth. We understand why you tried to destroy the two-legged. But you also tried to destroy the four-legged too, and they were innocent. They didn't do anything. So maybe we'll do this," they told that old man. They said, "Why don't you blow your breath for half the year to remind the two-legged of how to live so that they can walk in a good way with the animals? And for the other half of the year, let the birds sing their sacred songs so that life can flourish and spread medicine everywhere with their sacred songs." They said, "Maybe that'll be a good way too." The old man, of course, agreed. And it became so. The 6 spirits, what they agreed to do with Fisher was to turn Fisher into stars, to commemorate him for what he did. Those 7 stars hang above us every single night as a reminder of what took place so many years ago. Of course, now you see that Big Dipper in the springtime. When the birds sound their sacred voice, you see that dipper move up like this, and water gushes down to the earth. Of course, soon after, the birds sound their sacred voice, and life just flourishes. And in the fall time, the fisher goes and lays on its back like it's dead. And blood runs down to earth from where that old man shot him in his tail. And it covers the earth red. And the old man blows his breath as a reminder of what happened so long ago when the 2-legged became too greedy. We're in a sacred story right now. But nothing is impossible as it seems, because if it wasn't for the strong back of Porcupine, the good ways of Otter, the strong legs of Lynx, Fisher never would have made it through. Everything that we do now is going to make a difference in the future. So we need to ask ourselves, what are we going to be in this story that we're in right now? Are we going to be a villain? Or are we going to be a hero? But one thing is absolutely for sure. Whatever we do right now is going to be the next part of the story. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to the story. And I know for sure that if we make our decisions from our heart, we'll make the right ones. So I want to thank you. Thanks for taking the time to listen. Now, miigwech.